here to bring good vibes are twins, the new trend.
What's up, YouTube? Back with another video. As y'all can see in the title, we're gonna get into this video, man. If y'all want music reactions, please follow the link and click it down below in the description box. I do reaction videos on there daily. So without further ado, we're gonna get into this video, man. Let's see what it's talking about.
Talk about rescheduling, and it seems as if it's been stalled for a few months now, pretty much since President Trump took office. Now, just about 48 hours ago, there was another big update that says congressional lawmakers approve a bill to block the Justice Department from rescheduling the good herb. Now, according to some, the GOP Republicans are trying to stop the rescheduling process, while President Trump says it's coming.
A new GOP-backed bill in the House aims to block the Justice Department from rescheduling cannabis altogether. But here's the thing. This bill may actually be a signal that rescheduling is closer than ever. Read between the lines here. For the first time this year, President Trump himself has confirmed behind closed doors that his administration plans to move forward soon. So with that, let's break it down. So first, on Monday, July the 14th, the House Appropriations Committee released the text of a new spending bill covering commerce, justice, science, and related agencies. Inside that bill is Section 607, a provision that would prohibit the Department of Justice from using any of its funding to reschedule or deschedule marijuana under the Controlled Substances Act. If this rider becomes law, even if the DEA wanted to move forward with Schedule 3, they couldn't legally spend $1 to make it happen. But here's something to understand. This isn't the first time we've seen this. Similar language passed committee last year but didn't survive final negotiations. Still, this year's version is moving quickly with subcommittee action scheduled later this week.
So it's really pretty interesting what's happening at this point. And as this headline says, congressional lawmakers approve a bill to block the Justice Department from rescheduling the good herb. Now, this is pretty interesting, guys. And why it's interesting is because usually when you're close to something happening, that's when you see a lot of people trying to put things in place to stop it from actually happening. So this is pretty interesting, and that seems to be the perspective that Shah Dales of the Dales Report has adopted in this situation. Now, I've made my feelings clear already. I don't think rescheduling is the answer. I prefer to not have Big Pharma involved in any of this stuff, and also I think that descheduling is probably the better way to go about a lot of these things, because a lot of people know you're not allowed to legally make prescription drugs at home in your own place. And in this day and age, a lot of folks actually prefer to grow their own stuff at home. Now, that said, I want to break down the text of this bill and see exactly how it can affect rescheduling and what they did in the past, which was literally just about a year ago back in 2024, because they tried this already. Now, according to the wording of the bill, and I quote, "None of the funds appropriated or otherwise made available by this act may be used to reschedule the good herb or to remove the herb from schedules established under Section 202 of the Controlled Substances Act." Now, this language has cleared the committee, but it's not ultimately enacted into law. Now, when I've spoken about this issue a number of times in the past, a lot of people said that these laws cannot be changed. Any substance that's on the Controlled Substances Act cannot just be removed unilaterally. So what I decided to do was have a look at the CSA in more detail and determine exactly what's the process for removing a substance from the Controlled Substances Act. And according to this, to remove a drug from Schedule 1 of the Controlled Substances Act, a process involving rulemaking and review by the DEA and the HHS is required. This is primarily governed by Section 21, United States Code 811. The Attorney General must consider specific factors including the potential for abuse, specific evidence of pharmacological effects, and international treaty obligations. Now, here's a more detailed breakdown. The first step is a petition for rescheduling. This petition is submitted to the Drug Enforcement Administration to initiate the entire process. A review by the HHS follows second. The DEA evaluates the petition and consults with the Department of Health and Human Services. Factors are considered such as the drug's potential for abuse, its pharmacological effects, and any relevant international treaty obligations. If the HHS recommends rescheduling, the DEA initiates a rulemaking proceeding which includes public notice and opportunity for comment. And then final determination is made, and the Attorney General makes that final decision on whether to reschedule the drug based on the information gathered during the review process. Now, some people may think, well, the final call is with the Attorney General, but it's not just the Attorney General's decision. It's actually a lot of things that go into this, but the Attorney General does have the final say, but it must be based on the information provided during the review process. And as you guys can see clearly, the Attorney General cannot unilaterally remove any drugs from Schedule 1. The process for rescheduling, including its removal from Schedule 1, is governed by the Controlled Substances Act and includes specific procedures and reviews. While the Attorney General can initiate the process, it requires the DEA to conduct specific scientific medical evaluations, and ultimately the Attorney General makes the decision based on the DEA's findings. Now, from what I just showed you guys would have seen that a factor that must be taken into consideration is the international treaties, and according to this, the United States Controlled Substances Act, or the CSA, is a domestic law. It's not a treaty. It's a U.S. federal statute that regulates the manufacture, importation, possession, use, and distribution of certain substances. While the CSA is informed by international treaties like the Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs, Convention on Psychotropic Substances, the United Nations Convention Against Illicit Trafficking in Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances, it's not a cooperative agreement with other nations, meaning they're not other nations that actually have to align with the Controlled Substances Act of America. In fact, other countries have their own similar drug control laws, such as Canada's Controlled Drugs and Substances Act, and the main purpose of the CSA is to regulate controlled substances within the US framework, not to create a multinational agreement. Now, that in itself I found pretty interesting, and what I also found interesting is that the USDA database describes the good herb as medicinal, even though federal government still keeps it as Schedule 1, which Schedule 1 basically means a high potential for abuse and no medical benefits. So all of this is really interesting, and I'm really keen to see where all of this actually ends up. Now, going back to that bill, which was approved by congressional lawmakers to block the Justice Department from rescheduling the good herb, this was not officially signed into law despite the fact that it was approved. Now, there are a few things that can fall out from this entire thing, so let's have a look at those.
Inside that bill is Section 607, a provision that would prohibit the Department of Justice from using any of its funding to reschedule or deschedule marijuana under the Controlled Substances Act. If this rider becomes law, even if the DEA wanted to move forward with Schedule 3, they couldn't legally spend $1 to make it happen. But here's something to understand. This isn't the first time we've seen this. Similar language passed committee last year but didn't survive final negotiations. Still, this year's version is moving quickly with subcommittee action scheduled later this week. Interestingly, the same bill continues to protect state medical marijuana programs from federal interference under the Rohrabacher-Farr Amendment, a protection that's been renewed every year since 2014. But there's a twist. New language allows the DOJ to enforce tougher penalties for cannabis sales near schools.
I feel like not enough people talk about 1-800-CONTACTS. I've been using 1-800-CONTACTS since 2020, and I
parks, public housing, citing federal statute 21 USC 860. So while medical protections technically remain, we could see more targeted federal enforcement if this bill becomes law. This bill also leaves hemp protections untouched. State-run hemp research programs authorized under the 2014 Farm Bill would remain free from DOJ and DEA interference, but that's for now.
So one good thing that we see coming out of this bill is that it does continue to preserve a long-standing rider to prevent the DOJ from using its funds to interfere in the implementation of state medical programs. And also, the fact that hemp protections remain untouched is fantastic.
And this is where it gets interesting. The fact that the House Republicans are now pushing this rider right now, and now that it's been approved by lawmakers, strongly suggests they believe an announcement on rescheduling is imminent. Think about it. Why approve a funding block if you didn't think the DEA or the administration was about to act? So this isn't just about a budget rider, it's a defensive move, and it confirms that the political establishment sees rescheduling as a very real possibility here in the near term. And that is where this story gets even bigger.
So that goes back to what I was saying, guys. When things are actually close to becoming law, you see people putting in place other laws, countermeasures to try to block it. And that sort of feels like what's happening right now. And the truth is, we'll have to wait and see. But there's something else which has come up and has a lot of people thinking that rescheduling may be closer than ever.
And really, that theory just got a big boost. In a private meeting earlier this month with two members of the U.S. House of Representatives, President Donald Trump reportedly said, "We'll be moving forward soon with rescheduling marijuana." That's all you need to know. That's according to a staffer for one of the lawmakers who was in that room. So this is the first time Trump has personally commented on federal rescheduling process this year. And it comes at a critical moment. Back in 2022, Biden directed HHS and DOJ to review marijuana status. Then in August of 2023, HHS formally recommended moving cannabis to Schedule 3. 3. Over 40,000 public comments were submitted, with more than 90% in favor of rescheduling or going further. Yet the process, as we know, it stalled earlier this year. Trump's private comments and the fact he's attaching his name to this now adds significant political momentum at a time when the DEA is still officially in neutral. And something to add as well, this also comes as the Senate is expected to confirm Terrence Cole as the new DEA administrator in the coming days. Cole has already said rescheduling marijuana would be one of his top priorities if confirmed. So here's what could happen next. If the DEA acts first, cannabis moves to Schedule 3, unlocking research opportunities and 280E tax relief for medical operators. If Congress intervenes, expect a much bigger fight, with some lawmakers pushing for descheduling entirely. So really, here's where we're at. Trump says rescheduling is coming soon. The new DEA administrator appears ready to move, and House Republicans are scrambling to block it, which might actually confirm that they think it's about to happen, which I think could be the truth. The big question now, does the DEA finally act, or does Congress take the wheel?
So with that, it's really interesting to see where this ends up. President Trump behind closed doors has finally spoken on rescheduling, but again, there's no confirmation of this. This is just word of mouth that we've heard from one of the staffers. But let me know what you guys think. You guys know where I stand when it comes to rescheduling and descheduling.
That's crazy, man. What y'all think about, you know, the weed? I didn't know nothing about this, so I'm happy I stumbled upon this video, man. But I know a lot of people probably smoke weed, and I don't, but I know a lot of people do. And what y'all feel about this, and you know, legalizing. And one thing I did take away too, like once they, like, if it happened, like they legalize it and stuff, just like how you said, like if it's like sold like by the schools, or you know just by like them type of areas, apartments and stuff, yeah, the police most definitely will crack down, because you know America want all the money. They don't want people to be selling it on the side or anything of that nature. So yeah, man. But tell me how y'all feel about it in the comments down below. Appreciate y'all. Peace and love.